"I've been up since the dawn and am slightly delirious," says Jane McDonald with one of her trademark throaty laughs. SHE's fresh from an appearance on This Morning, still sporting a bouncy blow-dry and a face of television-grade makeup that looks a tad heavy away from the glare of the studio lights. Mind you, it's hard to think of a time we've seen Jane looking anything less than glam. Does she spend her downtime in silky negligées and smoky eyeshadow, or slob around in holy old t-shirts like the rest of us at home? "I put an old tracksuit on and put my hair up in a scrunchie, but nobody sees that side of me," she says, with that deep, rich laugh again. "I like to maintain a little air of mystique, so you don't normally see me dressed down at all. I'll even put my lippy on to go out to the bin." It's 20 years since Jane was catapulted to stardom on the BBC's docusoap The Cruise. Back then, she was a hard-working, 35-year-old singer on a cruise ship, but overnight she became one of Britain's first reality stars. The show was regularly watched by 14 million viewers, but a total of 18 million people tuned in to watch her wedding to Dutchman, Henrik Brixen. Once Jane hit the big time, Henrik quit his job as the ship's plumber and became her manager, a role that would eventually put a strain on the relationship. They divorced 4 years later. But at the time, it was Jane's frock on the country's lips, never mind Meghan Markle's. Where it all began. Jane on the Cruise, 1998 image, BBC. "It was fabulous having my wedding broadcast to the nation," she says. "I was very in love and happy. It was a great time in my life and having someone there to share it with was wonderful. I've got very fond memories of that time. But living and working together was tough because you can never switch off, life happens and sometimes it doesn't work out." This is characteristic of how Jane talks. SHE's brimming with positivity, but not in a Pollyanna-ish or insincere LA kind of way. Her words are peppered with superlatives, SHE's bright-eyed with enthusiasm and fizzing with energy. In her personal life too, SHE's like a love-struck teenager. 10 years ago, she rekindled her romance with fellow musician Eddie Roth. "Eddie was my first love. He was stunningly gorgeous and a big star in the band Liquid Gold," she says. "I was an 18-year-old barmaid, and we met when he spotted me dancing on the bar. When he asked me out, I was like, oh my god, oh my god." But their romance floundered after a year, with Eddie frequently on tour and Jane's visits to him resulting in her missing my mum a lot, just like I always do. But 30 years later, their paths crossed again, in the unlikeliest of circumstances. "I was sat in the Loose Women makeup room and he popped up on the monitor, in a band called The Searchers. The makeup girl told me to go and say hello, though I assumed he'd be married with kids. But boom. It was like we'd never broken up." These days, Jane's happier than ever, and with good reason. SHE's got a primetime TV show, Cruising with Jane McDonald, and another, Jane McDonald Friends, about to launch. On Jane Friends Image, Channel 5. Her tours sell out, SHE's producing Knock 'Em Dead albums, and she has a partner she adores. Oh, and thanks to Cruising, she can now be referred to as the BAFTA award-winning Jane McDonald. "Thank you very much. Ridiculous, isn't it?" she says with an enormous grin. "I keep it at my mum's, on the mantelpiece. I'm never at home so I thought I'd let her babysit it for a while. It's her award too really. SHE's sacrificed a lot to get me here." When Jane says SHE's barely at her home in Wakefield, she really means it. She still does 9 cruises a year as part of the show. "I'm always only back for a few days at a time. It's a shame as my house is very peaceful. It's a place where I exhale," she says. "It's all decorated in very pale colors, but there are always clothes everywhere, because I'm always packing or unpacking. I've got a rail of clothes for cruising, another for real life. I'll have enough time eventually to sit and enjoy what I've been working for." Eddie and Jane Image, Fame Flynet, but Jane shows no sign of letting up anytime soon. "I'm a workaholic and 100% committed to what I do," she says. "That's what's got me here. I don't feel I've made any sacrifices, I've just made choices. I don't really feel like I've missed out by not having any kids, they've never really been my focus. Of course, there's a lot of luck involved in success, but it's what you do with the luck." When we point out that there was also plenty of talent involved in her success, she swats away the compliment. "Oh, bless you for saying that," she says, touching her slightly on the hand. But Jane's a grafter and you can spot it a mile off. The daughter of a miner and a newsagent, she says she has no idea where her drive for glitz and glamour came from, and she was 27 before she stepped aboard a cruise ship. I'll never forget the magic of it. Good grief, we went to Bridlington every year when I was growing up, she says. I'm from a very working-class family, so to get a job traveling the world was a real achievement. But, as a kid, I was the worst traveler. When I told my mum I was going on a ship, she laughed her head off and said, "You can't even get on the number 37 bus." I found my sea legs, though I took a couple of seasickness tablets and never looked back. It wasn't always as glamorous as you'd imagine, and Jane spent years living in cramped crew quarters. It was a windowless, tiny box, but to me, it was still exciting, she says. These days, sometimes I'm in the ship's presidential suites, sometimes I'm not. I don't mind either way. I say to my mum, "Do you fancy a cruise?" and she says, "I don't care if you put me in a lifeboat, just get me on board." Jane on the Loose Women panel image, ITV. With so many cruises and their gargantuan buffets, we're intrigued to know how Jane manages to keep fit and healthy. "I have to be quite strict with what I eat when I get back, because I do like to let myself go on board," she says. "As soon as I set foot on the boat, I feel like I'm on my holidays, but it's my job." Back in 2016, Jane lost 1.5 stone on ITV's sugar-free farm. At the time, she said cutting out sugar made her feel like jumping out of the window, but 2 years later Jane's maintained a 4-stone weight loss and feels fab. "It's been one of the best things I've done," she says. "My taste buds have readjusted, and I don't crave sugar anymore. I do have a wine, and I probably live by the 80/20ths rule." Her weight loss was well documented on Loose Women, where Jane spent a decade putting the world to rights. "I was so outspoken on the show. Every day I'd get home and think, I wish I hadn't said that, but I loved every single minute of it. But things change, and for me it's been a very good change." With a BAFTA under her sequined belt, we can't wait to see what Jane gets up to next. Jane on working her way up. Jane McDonald with her BAFTA image, Getty. Before landing a cruising job, Jane had spent 15 years singing in working men's clubs, a tough grounding that SHES never forgotten. I'd do 3 gigs a night, and there were no sat-navs back then. Finding your way around was hard, she remembers. "I used to get so much cheek off the lads, but that's when I learned to use comedy and to always have an answer for them if they heckled. I'd shut them right up by calling them to the front and getting them to say it again. You've got to die a few times on stage to be able to be a success. You've got to have people getting their dominoes out in front of you, or the curtains closing on you because the bingo's starting. You stop and think, why are they not listening, and then adapt." How does Jane spend her Sunday weekend away? A Sunday brunch at home. "I have a very good chef at home. Eddie knows exactly how I like everything. Lazy lion or up with the lark, I dream of lions. 10 o'clock is the perfect time for me. And then breakfast in bed. Eddie's quite the man. Hungover or fresh as a daisy. I'm not very big on the drinking scene. I haven't got enough life left for hangovers now. I'd rather have a cup of tea than a glass of wine." What couldn't you get through the weekend without speaking to my mum? "I speak to her every day, and I cherish every conversation. Running errands are pampering. I love pampering. But I do end up running errands a lot too. Sunday lunch at home, a pub roast lunch at home with my amazing chef. Eddie does everything, even the washing up. I'm really lucky." Cruising with Jane McDonald, Fridays at 9 p.m. on Channel 5. Jane McDonald Friends airs this summer on Channel 5.